Welcome back, everybody. So I'm making a presentation right now that I'm going to be giving to some graduate students, and it's about my own scientific journey. And it's a talk of like a career shop talk, and it's about, how did I get to industry? What was my career path? And it gave me a chance to kind of reflect a little bit on my time as a PhD student and then my time as a postdoc. And what I want to talk about in today's video is my idea that I think the culture around doing a PhD needs to change. And I know that this isn't some breakthrough idea. I'm sure a lot of you have the same opinion, or once you finish school, you'll look back and you'll have the same opinion. But I think that this is something that I want to put out there as my own viewpoint on the journey of doing a PhD. So, a while ago, it used to be that whether you were doing any kind of, terminal type degree, so like law school, medical school, graduate school, you kind of went through your own trials and tribulation, if you will. So you would work tons of hours, have low pay, you would do the dirt work, you do the dirty work, right? You do what it takes to build up that toughness, that grit, and really work your way up until you were a freshly minted MD or a PhD or whatever it is. And then the same kind of cycle continues again when you do your post-training. So like if you're a resident for medical school or doing a postdoc, the same thing would continue. And I think that there is some benefit to doing that. I think that when I look back, I'm not saying that everything that I did in my PhD wasn't worth it. I think that, putting in those hours was good. I think doing those really hard experiments, it really built grit and character, and it really changed my outlook a lot on what it means to do science and to persevere. And it's stuff that's applied to the rest of my life. The way I look at life is very different, and not just because I'm educated in science per se, but going through that process is something that it fundamentally changes your brain. I'm convinced of this. I'm sure that there's, actual studies that have been done in terms of like white matter versus gray matter, or what parts of your brain change when you do a degree. But I'm sure that there are anatomical, physiological changes that happen. There's biochemical changes. There's just, a lot changes, right? And I think that we could all appreciate that. But what's interesting is, in medicine, when you finish medical school and you do your residency, they used to work 100-hour weeks, 120 hours a week. They would work these unbearable types of hours where it's like you would be off and then you would work for 24 hours straight. Then you'd get 12 hours off. Then you'd work a 30-hour shift. You would work these, really long shifts. And what they found was that the doctors were tired and were basically killing people. They were so sleep deprived and tired, they were just making basic medical mistakes. And so they had to trim it back. And now they have laws, at least in the United States, and I'm sure Europe is the same way, where they cap the amount of hours that a resident can work. And this is for patient safety. But these types of safety nets haven't been put in for graduate students, for people doing a PhD. And it's almost gotten to the point where it's just such a big competition, right? So in medicine, you're competing against people maybe for a grade or for a position at a, university, but there's other positions out there. When it comes to doing a PhD, it's one big competition. There's a field that you're in. So maybe you're in the field of breast cancer. Well, there's only X amount of people that could be the best at breast cancer in the world. And so you just have thousands of people competing for this spot. And so it's this never-ending perpetual, I need to publish more than the next person. I need to publish, instead of doing 2 papers, maybe it used to be when you did a PhD, 1 paper, maybe 2 papers. Now it's, I need to do 3 or 4 papers. And it's no surprise that when you're doing research as a PhD student, that depression rates have been on the rise, that anxiety rates have been on the rise, that people are dropping out, not because they can't do the actual science, but because they just can't mentally take the punishment that it takes to go through doing a PhD. And going through this gauntlet is just too much. And I feel for them that it's real. It's not something that's in make-believe in somebody's mind, that There's real angst that goes through this. And, I've talked about this in other videos that, if you go through this, you're not alone. And far from it. I think pretty much every single person goes through it. I'd be shocked if there was someone that didn't go through, this kind of feeling as they were going through their PhD. But what I think needs to change is the way that we look at what a PhD is, right? So a PhD doesn't need to be working 100 hours in the lab. It doesn't need to be working 60 hours in a lab even necessarily. It doesn't need to be this angst and anxiety inducing thing that you go through. Of course, there's going to be some anxiety and angst that happens when you're doing a PhD, but it doesn't need to be to the level that it is. At the core, what a PhD is it's teaching you how to think and behave like a scientist, how to think critically, how to analyze data and question data, how to look at a complex problem and pinpoint a way that you would address it using the scientific method. These are the types of lessons that we learn doing a PhD. And I don't think that working 80 hours a week is necessary to answer that. I don't think that a grad school advisor talking to you, like you are less than human is necessary for that. I don't think that, being treated poorly by the fellow postdoc in the lab or the senior grad student that's about to graduate is necessary for that. And so I think that we really need to start rethinking the way that we treat graduate students and how we incentivize and what we're actually teaching, right? So this is a whole nother video that I want to make. Is sometimes the lessons that we learn in grad school are not applicable at all. And then there's other times where we're completely missing major topics, okay? So if you're doing a PhD, you're going to be going to a job, whether it's a faculty position or industry or in government research, you're going to go into a job where you're going to manage other people. You're going to be somebody's boss. You're going to be someone's supervisor. I don't know about you, but I never learned how to do that in my PhD. I'm guessing none of you did either. And this is something that all of us are going to have to do at some point. So why is this never taught? It kind of blows my mind. If you want to become a faculty member, you're going to have to spend a large amount of time writing grants. So if you're doing a PhD in the United States, why is it never taught how to fundamentally put together a NIH grant, a simple fellowship or an R01? Like, why is this never taught? I don't understand. Unless you're in a lab where you and your PI decide that you're going to write some kind of a grant together, or he asks or she asks you to review an R01, you're not exposed to any of that. It's sort of like the old argument, like, I'm going through school and they're teaching me the Pythagorean theorem, but they're never teaching me, what I need to do to pay my taxes. These basic skills that you need to survive as a scientist aren't really being taught in school. And I think that some of this we need to rethink how we're training our scientists. I think that there are some fundamental flaws in the PhD system at the moment, and they need to be addressed. Now, again, I don't have all of the answers, and this isn't meant to provide anyone with all the answers. It's just that I have a medium to put this out there on a YouTube channel, and so I want to, I think that we need to change this. So if you agree, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you also think that we need to change the way that we do our PhDs. I think that there's a little bit of toxicity in the way that we do it, and it needs to change. I agree, we need to build up grit and perseverance and all that, and fine. But I think that there's better ways that we could go about doing it without burning out all of our PhDs before they've even graduated. So I think that's enough rambling for right now. I'll catch you guys in the next one with more advice for each of you, but I kind of wanted to put this out there. This is just my own self-reflection. Nothing scripted or anything, just talking. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.